So there's a story developing that I think really captures where we are right now with the Trump administration. It involves a TV commercial, Canada, and what might be one of the most successful political stunts seen in years. And the best part? Trump walked right into it. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford put out an anti-tariff ad featuring Ronald Reagan's own words, and Trump's response was to blow up an entire trade negotiation. Now, what makes this fascinating isn't just that Trump overreacted. We've seen that before. It's that Ford clearly knew exactly what buttons he was pushing, and Trump couldn't help himself.
Donald Trump is clearly jet-lagged, Jeff, because he was on social media at 4:30 a.m. here local time, blasting Canada, promising a new 10% tariff, in his words, over and above what they are paying now. If that's a new baseline tariff or just an additional 10% on what Canada is paying on things like steel and aluminum, that's not clear right now.
So we're looking at a 10% tariff increase as direct retaliation for a TV commercial. Think about that for a second. Major economic policy being driven by hurt feelings over an ad. And this wasn't some attack ad either. It was just historical footage of Ronald Reagan.
This comes after Trump called off trade talks with Canada on Thursday because he's upset about an ad from the Ontario government that had clips from a 1987 speech from Ronald Reagan, where he dumped on tariffs.
Now, here's where the strategy gets interesting. Ford didn't just put this ad out randomly. He timed it during the American League Championship and then the World Series. Trump was on Air Force One flying to Malaysia during that game. You think he wasn't watching? Of course he was. And sure enough, at 4:30 in the morning, Malaysia time, Trump's on social media having a meltdown about it.
Trump said it was fake, a fraud, and that Reagan loved tariffs in certain circumstances, and none of that's true, Jeff. The speech is real.
The speech is real. That's the key point here. This wasn't doctored footage or taken out of context in any meaningful way. Reagan actually said these things on the record repeatedly throughout his career. But Trump's go-to move when confronted with inconvenient facts is to just declare them fake. What Reagan actually said matters here because it exposes the fundamental disconnect in Trump's version of Republican economic policy. Reagan saw tariffs as a necessary evil in very specific circumstances, not as a general economic strategy.
And while Reagan did discuss putting very limited tariffs on Japan during that address, he talked at length about how much he hated tariffs, which was a central theme of his entire political career. Also in that speech, he praises Canada on free trade, which led to the signing of the Canada-US free trade deal with Brian Mulroney later that year.
And Doug Ford knew all of this going in. He did his homework. Ford mentioned he spoke with Carolyn Mulroney, Brian Mulroney's daughter, about her father's work with Reagan on free trade. Ford went to a U.S. law firm to vet the ad for legal issues. He made sure everything was in the public domain. This wasn't amateur hour. So Ford holds his press conference after everything blows up, and reporters are asking if he owes Ontarians an apology for derailing Shade Talks.
I'll tell you, Brian, that we had over 1 billion impressions around the world.
1 billion impressions. Now that number is pretty remarkable when you think about it. They were planning to spend $75 million on this campaign running through February. They spent a fraction of that and got what Ford claims was $300 to $400 million in earned media value.
We didn't have to spend the $75 million I thought we would, a fraction of that, and I'll get the numbers for you shortly. But what we did, we ended up with earned media of anywhere from 300 to 400 million people.
Why? Because Trump couldn't stop talking about it. Every complaint, every threat, every angry tweet just amplified the message. That's not just good political messaging, that's your opponent actively helping you achieve your goals. Ford wanted Americans talking about tariffs. Trump made sure they were.
What we did, we generated a conversation that wasn't happening in the U.S. Now, every single local media, every large media, medium-sized media in the U.S. is talking about it. So is every governor, senator, and congressman and woman, not only nationally, but statewide. And the message was very clear. Protectionism does not work. And that's the message we have to the American people.
Ford is claiming he talks regularly to American governors, senators, and members of Congress who privately disagree with Trump's tariff approach but won't say so publicly. And you know what? That's probably true. The political environment right now where Republican officials are scared to contradict a Republican president isn't normal. There's a broader pattern here worth noting. When Trump was asked about the massive protests against his administration, his immediate response was to dismiss them as fake. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. Same playbook every time. Criticism isn't legitimate, it's paid for. Historical facts aren't real, they're fake. Protests aren't genuine, they're manufactured. Anything inconvenient gets dismissed rather than engaged with. It's a pattern, and it matters because it shows how policy decisions are actually being made or not made. And whether you agree with Fort's tactics or not, you have to admit he got results in terms of his stated goals. He wanted to start a conversation about tariffs and America. He wanted to reach millions of Americans with his message about protectionism. He wanted to show that someone wouldn't just cave to Trump's pressure. From a pure political messaging standpoint, Fort played this brilliantly. Trump took the bait completely and couldn't help but amplify the exact message Ford wanted Americans to hear. The bigger picture here is about how decisions are made in this administration. When a TV commercial featuring accurate historical footage can blow up trade negotiations and trigger major tariff increases, you have to ask whether we're looking at policy or just ego management. And the answer is pretty clear. Let me know what you think in the comments.